Hey everybody, welcome back to the Simpit, and we're back with another podcast. And with me, I've got two very, very special guests. I've got Luke and I've got Danny, and both of these guys work for the ADAC Simracing Expo. And you get to see them out there. If you're going to be going to the Simracing Expo, you get a chance to meet them. But we have Danny, he is actually the organizer of the Simracing Expo, and then we got Luke. He's the community manager, and he's also going to be doing commentary and organizing a bunch of the panels at the expo. So without further ado, we'll start with Danny. Danny, do you want to give us a quick introduction? Tell us who you are, how you got into sim racing, and how you kind of evolved into becoming one of the organizer of the biggest sim racing expos in the world.
So let's make it short, because when I start to talk, it's always taking way too long. Hi, I'm Danny. I'm now 37 years old, and luckily my birthday is on the Saturday on the expo. So work and birthday together, and
so I get you a cake.
Please don't. Please. I can't eat cake. I hate it so much.
I
don't know why.
No problem.
Yeah, go ahead and get it. Coming back, I came to sim racing actually through real life racing. So as I started also out as a kid in karting, and then through the way, and I used to drive karting and the finance stuff. I had the desire to drive more, and sim racing was obviously the choice for that, because it's way easier from the money and also easier to train. And if you start to spend a lot of time inside instead of outside, if you're a young person, you can get very good in very short time. And then I started to compete on different sims, and ended up also at some point in the iRacing Blancpain World Championship, and stopped sim racing 5 years later. Took it again off, and as a professional again. Mm-hmm. And also drove for Mercedes AMG on the Nordschleife. And afterwards, I had the desire to give something back, because I had also the chance to be in a Nissan GT Academy and had to train a lot of young professional drivers, and was like, what can I change with my experience and wisdom and everything that I achieved so far in sim racing. And 2021, I came across the opportunity to be a co-host on the Racing Expo, and let's say the co-host stuff wasn't so my thing, but being around and talking with people and being chatty, caring for just our guests and visitors and exhibitors, and staying with my boss at the hotel bar until midnight, being the first one at the breakfast was also quite pressing as it seems. And so I started to work for the Racing Expo since 2022, and now for the new company that's organizing it itself as well. And so here I am. But I just wanted to shout out that I'm not the organizer itself. We are 4 people running the Sim Racing Expo, and I'm like the Wikipedia for sim racing. Okay. And then we have 2 beautiful women, Antje and Nadi, taking care for everything else, like event, finance, accounting. And then we have a business developer. So that's the team behind doing everyday works of the Sim Racing Expo.
All right. I'll say thank you, ladies. Thanks for helping out with the Sim Expo. It's awesome, man. I enjoy going every single year, man. It's been going to the last 7. And
to be honest, they don't earn enough. They answer every question of visitors, exhibitors, our questions that also sometimes a bit awkward or stupid, because we ask the 5th time for our flights and so on. So they deserve so much more. And if you want to give them a cake, they are the ones who can take a cake. And they would be, I think, very, very generous and happy about that, because they love sweets. So
all right, man, we'll have to figure something out for them too. So
yeah.
Well, I guess Luke, now it's your turn, man. You are one of the new faces for the Sim Racing Expo, man. You want to give us a little intro about you?
Pretty similar start to Danny, apart from, well, I didn't do real world racing, but I competed in sim racing back in Project Cars 2, the early days of Project Cars 2, at the very top level, which was fun. I started pretty much the same as anyone my age, Ridge Racer, TOCA Touring Cars, TOCA 2, the usual games. Maybe even a bit of top-down look with Grand Theft Auto. It was all about the cars for me still with that one. If you remember bird's eye view Grand Theft Auto, then you're in your 30s. So, yeah, that's how it began. I realized very quickly that I was in my sort of mid-20s, that there wasn't really any money in competing. And so I tried to sort of figure out how can I potentially make a living from this space that I love. And so I started to commentate on me and my friends, just racing, and it kind of got noticed by Project Cars themselves. My first ever gig was actually their first ever Project Cars World Championship, and it kind of just snowballed from there. I've worked on some of the biggest sim racing events that's ever happened, which is unbelievable considering where I came from. And with COVID, I kind of then transitioned into hosting events as well as commentary. I used to argue with Danny on Twitter on a daily basis.
Like really daily basis.
Yeah, really. We didn't like each other. We genuinely weren't friends in the slightest. As soon as he had a hot take, I would be, telling him he's wrong. And as soon as I had my hot take, he'd be telling me I was wrong. Yeah, it was crazy. As I mentioned, just COVID happened, and I worked with some of the biggest, Formula One, Formula E. I worked with DTM. I got a job as a real world commentator with DTM briefly for 3 seasons. And then off of the back of that, I saw Danny posting about this expo, and we weren't friends, but I DM'd him and said, we did follow each other, and I DM'd him and said, do you need a commentator for this event? And he went, we don't need a commentator, but we need a host. And it's been my 4th year, I think, this year, 3rd or 4th year, where I host the stage. And now, with this new role as community manager, I will answer back on social media, leave some hearts on people's comments if they're nice. Not leave a heart if it's not so nice. And there you go, a little secret there if you've not got a heart on your comment because it wasn't nice. And the stage panels. So I've obviously been on stage hosting these panels, and now I've been given a bit of freedom to kind of mold them a little bit, and for me make them watchable. For me personally, I'm looking at them going, what can I make better? What can I make it more interesting for people watching at home, and make it a bit more fun? So that's kind of my role now.
Nice, man. Yeah, I think it's probably like one of the things that's, I don't want to say it's the side act of the Sim Racing Expo. It's definitely one of the features of the Sim Racing Expo, but I don't think it gets a lot of love for the events that are actually going on. And like I've sat down and watched a bunch of the racing going on and heard you, and it's awesome, man. Like, so hearing the commentary, hearing what's going on, like really brings a whole new life to it, man. So again, thanks to you, man, trying to make the expo, better and better. So getting into now, like, I guess the Sim Expo part, I know this is probably before your guys' time, but if you guys do know, like, how did the ADAC Simracing Expo come to life, and what was kind of, what do you think was the inspiration behind it?
So actually, I know the founder of the Simracing Expo. Okay. He's called Mark Henrici. He used to be like a very famous racing driver in Germany. Also drove GT3 on the Nürburgring Nordschleife and so on. And actually, he was sitting at the 24-hour race with his friends, and they were playing like literally on a CRT TV Gran Turismo, and just like, I mean, look, racing drivers, no matter real or virtual, we are stupid. So you're going out driving 24 hours with a real car on the Nürburgring, and then you're like, whew, what can I do better than driving on Gran Turismo with my teammates, right? And they always, so I feel a bit like ashamed to tell the story, because Mark is like the grandfather, the mind behind it. But and then they were like, yeah, when we like it, there are probably more people out there. And I mean, I think that was in 2011, this kind of idea, and then they worked like really hard 3 years on that to start the Sim Racing Expo. And if you look back, I was researching for the 10th anniversary, which we have right now, on the Facebook account, and if you compare it with last year, it's nearly laughable. But it perfectly shows also the transition of sim racing from like like, I don't know how to say, but it's like a garage sale or like a garage exhibition back then. Most of the exhibits had tables and so on, and then they started. And I mean, always, if you compare your own growth and so on, the start always looks like very laughable. But if you never start, then you have never like a success story. And for our part, we came in, so the company or the people that worked on the expo back then and also not to the part now took over in 2018, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And now with Source West Vision, where we are working,
Mm-hmm.
we are now like the second gen of Simracing Expo organization, and like really trying to grow it beyond the limits,
Yeah.
because from my feeling last year, and as you said in the talks before, like last year was very good.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't know actually how good the expo was until like 2 or 3 weeks afterwards, because
Right.
of the press, of the feedback of the exhibitors, of the visitors, and also content creators.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Sim Racing Expo comes more like a trend barometer for how is sim racing evolving.
Right.
So if the Sim Racing Expo is big, people would look more likely onto it like, oh, sim racing is growing
Yeah.
and it's flourishing. And when it would be start to drop down again, it would be also setting a negative trend on sim racing. Like, I mean, if you compare it to the esports events, when there are not many viewers, people also saying, "Oh, sim racing, nobody cares about it."
Right.
So this is like the other part of the medal in that case, and I think Mark sadly doesn't get the recognition of what he have done in the 2000s, 2010s, and he was way beyond the time at that moment. As I said, you can watch the Facebook account, and they even did something like in 2017 or 16 with Vodafone and a BMW Z4 GT3 and Forza, like side by side. So basically, you had a simulator on the Döttinger Höhe, and then the Z4 was taking off, and then they drove like real life side by side.
Yeah.
I mean, people are now doing these kind of things and say on LinkedIn, they're like, yeah, we are the pioneers, but they did it already like 8 years back, and it's actually crazy how much time they put in. And it's also for us like, working on that behalf and that spirit, like continuing and trying to make it bigger and bigger and also crazier. That's why we have some people like Luke that taking the stage panel and saying like, oh, we can improve on that. And that's very important.
Yeah, it is, man. Because I remember, I said going back to like 6-7 years ago. Yeah, it was kind of like that. It was just vendors had their booths and everything, and then you had if you've ever been to the arena in the Nürburgring, for like people are watching, like they had the big giant screen and they had a couple of simulators set up in front of it, and they did their racing in front of there. But like, yeah, it was just like tables and booths and everything like that. But then like going to last year's was like, you had Aztec, they brought out a race car. You had Get Closer Racing, they brought out a race car. And then, eventually broke out into having a rev off, and like, the whole arena just broke out, with who had the loudest car in their rev off, which is pretty cool too. So I hope to see more of that this expo. I don't know if you guys got in trouble for it last time around or
No, luckily not. We also introduced now the engine hour. Which will be on from 13 to 14 o'clock. And let's say we are working very hard on getting an LMDH car to the expo. And we have Racing Unleashed. And when you do some research and see one car especially, you can bet your house on it that we'll have it on the expo. Just giving the viewers some time to research something and getting excited for it.
It's not good for me though, Danny, is it? Because
And
last year
they
had the engine off while I was trying to host a panel. It's like, cheers everyone. Yeah, appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Christ.
I'm trying to talk here, guys. Like, can you just...
I'm loud, but I'm not V8 loud. Jesus.
Well, I mean, so going into it, I know there's a lot of work. There's a lot of behind the scenes that happens, trying to work with the vendors, trying to schedule the venue. Luckily, now you have the venue for a couple of years, so you don't have to worry about that. But just the whole logistics of everything else. So compared, like, over the years, where do you see like there's going to be some major changes or improvements to the expo going into this year?
Yeah, so first of all, I think would give the opportunity for Luke to talk about it, because Luke is not taking over by incident of the stage panel. So I used to do it in the years before, but let's say because of Luke's also other work he's involved with, he has very good idea of what is entertaining and what is working for viewers and so on. And at some point, with 4 people, you're running against your limits. And then Luke came in and was like, "Yeah, can I help you?" And now he's taking care of the stage plan. I would say that is, I think, from last to this year, one of the biggest improvements. So, Luke.
Yeah, I think it's familiarity, right? If you're familiar with your surroundings, you're going to be in a better position to add. And I'm talking about each and every exhibitor who's going to be there, who was there last year. They know what to expect, so it's going to take less time for them to set up, so they can maybe invest more time in how it looks, and they also understand how many people are going to come through the doors, so they'll be more ready for that situation, so it'll be more entertaining. And I think us as the organisers of this event are also in the same boat, because it was a new venue last year. Now we know what to expect. We know what the plan is going to be. We know where the flow is going to be in terms of people watching the panels or getting involved with the panels. So it's really, I think, familiarity is the main thing to work on and grow with. We've moved, like you said, from the Nordschleife or the Nürburgring. Then we were in Nuremberg, which again, one of the best cities in the world for me. I love that place. And now we're in Dortmund, but it's making somewhere feel like you're home. It's a bit like football, to be honest.
Yeah.
When you first move into a new stadium, it's a bit shaky and it's like, is it home? But now it's like our home arena where we can really flourish and sort of explore what we already know. So that's what I would say to people who will be there or maybe have never visited before. Like, it will feel familiar because everybody kind of knows what they're doing.
Yeah. Cool, man. So, I mean, with that, with you guys doing the changes and the improvements going on, what has been some of the biggest challenges, in organizing an event like this, like the Sim Racing Expo, especially now with sim racing exploding, like especially since COVID? Like before, we say sim racer is like, what's a sim racer? Is he like one of those guys that sits in the basement with that, Logitech DFGT? But now it's grown so popular. Everybody's got a DD. Everybody's got load cell brakes, a sim rig with triple screens or VR and everything. So yes, can you tell us a little bit about the challenges you now are facing or potentially going to face in the future as sim racing grows in popularity?
I would say from the organization standpoint, it is really hard to make the compromise for everyone. So we on LinkedIn, our company is sometimes like posting some stuff about the market growth of sim racing and how big the entry level, mid level, and high end is. And Sim Racing Expo started out as a hardcore, let's say, nerd exhibition. I don't want to say nerd in a negative way, but like hardcore people enjoying the hobby or like making it professional. And with the growth, it always comes that new people comes to the expo or generally to the hobby. And basically, if you see the content creator side, there's like 90% content creators doing reviews for entry level or mid-range level and very small part of high end. Right. And we, as an exhibition, we also need to take care that we satisfy our customers, like our visitors, but also our exhibitors with like vice versa with the products they want to meet. And Sim Racing Expo was in the past always lacking on shops actually that selling stuff, because I don't know, in nearly every exhibition where you can go, you can buy as well something, whether it's merch or also something like you can take home and use it. And this year we actually have the glory to have 4 sim racing shops that actually selling at Expo. And the other part is also, I think, to have like always some new exhibitors. In the past, people were saying like, this exhibitor is missing and that exhibitor is missing, but that's natural. I mean, if you look, the ERR, like the world biggest car show, there's also not every car company coming every time. And that's not down to the expo itself. Sometimes they dedicate the budget for marketing to other things or just don't have any things to show. And if you don't have any things to show, it doesn't make any sense to have an exhibition booth, to be honest. Therefore, we have these kind of challenges. And I can also say, like, this year we sent out over 170 applications, or got applications and answered on that, and like only 50% or that are coming. You know, there's big interest, but in the end, it's always like how many people or how many exhibitors then can fulfill the interest or can make it, and it's very hard task to do, obviously, because it's not like, here's the application, you pay the money and you come. I mean, for some exhibitors, you need to tell them what they actually need to do, what kind of activity they could have on the booth. We also help them out to get contact with content creators, because they also don't know about these kind of things. Because generally, besides the big brands like Fanatec, Logitech, AZTech, Thrustmaster, some of the companies are only 2 people. And one is an engineer, and sometimes the other part in the company is even the wife, and how they should like accomplish these kind of things. They can maybe like pay the floor space, but everything else, like hiring somebody for marketing and so on, that's so expensive, and that's also one kind of challenge we have, but also taking on this challenge to help the exhibitors to grow.
I enjoyed it. Like last year, because last year you had a Simracing shop. They were out there as the vendor. Everything.
They were huge successfully.
Like every time I walk over, they were just jam packed with customers and everything, which was cool. Because previous expos you couldn't really buy anything from everybody. You could just watch, like, oh, that's pretty. Can I buy it? And they're like, no, sorry. And you leave disheartened. But then so it's cool that you're expanding now to 4 vendors. And like I was really happy that Simracing Shop was there, because I use them for everything since I'm in Germany.
Denzo is also very cool person.
Dennis is an awesome guy. I'm happy to see more vendors coming out, and I guess you're kind of right. You're alluding to that it's it's getting harder and harder, because I mean, let's say 5-6 years ago, your biggest, let's say, just only wheelbase marketers were Logitech, Thrustmaster, Fanatec, and Simucube. But now you have to add on Conspit, you have to add on Acetec, you have to add on all these other guys. So I could see definitely the challenges now trying to accommodate all these people into this area. You might have to rent out a football stadium.
There's one close, right?
There's one right across the street. So for this goes for both you guys too, because we're talking about getting more and more vendors and expanding, getting now into like how much sim racing is advanced. Because like I said earlier, like 5-6 years ago, you only had really 3, maybe 4 brands to go buy stuff from, and now we're like everywhere you look, there's like hundreds of I don't want to say hundreds, but like dozens of different brands to think about. So for you guys, because you guys are pretty knowledgeable in the sim racing scene, what are some of the newest and latest technology or innovations, either hardware or software, that really caught your attention in the past year?
You want me to go to this one, Danny?
Yeah.
I think VR's improved a hell of a lot. I remember using VR when maybe 5 years ago, and I despised it. Like, it was just... It just didn't make me feel comfortable, right? And you would never ever see someone at the esport level using VR. It just wouldn't happen. But now there are a few people that are starting to use VR in esports, or I guess elite level, I will call it. But you'll see on most games posts now, loads of comments are, is VR going to be with this new game? And that's kind of the biggest question asked, I would say. So for me, virtual reality is definitely the one that is has improved the most, for sure.
Cool.
That's a good take. Sadly for me that I need to have another one.
We just agreed on camera.
We
Unreal.
Wow. Live on camera.
This is a first in sim racing. All right, Luke and Danny agree.
Unreal.
Oh, the Simpit guys. All right.
Yes. Simpit brought us together. To be honest, and I maybe don't make any friends with that one, but I think motion advanced a lot, because in the start, when people start bringing motion, it was always like a roller coaster, right? And they were like, yeah, that's like a real racing car, and then you're like, wait, which cars they are driving? Right. Maybe buy a truck or something, and I tried on the Gamescom Actoracer actually.
Yeah.
And Torsten, so basically the owner of Actoracer, and I had like a very furious conversation years
Right.
ago where I was like, yeah, you know, that stuff doesn't feel close to
Yeah.
reality. And he's very proud of his products. It was, I think, would hope to kill me actually on site, on the point.
Right.
But then I tested again. He gave me a shot, and I had like 30 minutes in the simulator, and I was like getting out and had such a detailed feedback on everything because they put so much time in the improvement of the software on simulating motion in a simulator rig and like making these kind of small adjustments that the car when it's pitching, also feeling that the tire is deformating before you get in a corner and so on, that I feel for me personally like motion is actually went from roller coaster ride to finally something useful that you can put on your simulator and come closer to the real racing. And that's actually for me I think one of the biggest progress. And I wouldn't say like progress in a technology point, but you after a certain price tag, whether it's steering wheels, pedals and so on, actually you can't buy any worse products anymore. The quality, the average quality of products has gone so up in the last couple of years that you can, that like, I mean, 500 euros for the pedal set. Let's be clear, it's still a lot of money. But you can go for VRS or Conspit or SimMagic, and these are only 3 at this kind of price tag. And everybody will meet at some point his demand, his style, his appeal. And I think that's also showing how far sim racing actually advanced, that there's not only anymore like high quality and a high price tag. The price tag came down and the quality improved in the same direction. Upwards, not in the same direction. Would be bad. And that's also a very good sign actually for sim racing.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, Luke, but I can't agree with you. I've got to agree with Danny on this because for me, again, like so, like Danny, because I've have a background in autocross racing cars and stuff like that, and then jumping into the sim rigs where, it was just like a roller coaster. Like you're only in the rig for maybe like 10 minutes max because they're trying to get all the customers through. But like you get out and you're like, oh my god, oh my back, like what did you just do to me? And and I was like, what is this? Like this is like not driving a car. Like I've been in race cars, I've driven cars on on Nordschleife and Hockenheim and everything. I'm like, I get out of my car, I'm like, I want to do more laps, not get out and just like I want to go take a nap and rest and lay in my bed, not because I'm old, but because of how much the car thrashed me around. But now you're getting into now, I guess, with the fine tuning it, and now I don't know if it was part of like shock and awe. They want to shock and awe people, like, oh my god, look how motion strong is. But seeing the last couple of upgrades and evolution of motion rig, where like you sit in and you're like, now like, okay, I'm driving, like it feels like I'm actually driving a race car. I feel all the vibrations of the road. I feel the engine. I feel the gear shifting. So I've got to agree with you, Danny. There, I'm sorry, Luke. Please don't start hitting on me on Twitter now.
we're not disagreeing on that. Like motion's improved. VRs are both improved.
Yes.
Like I think that's and the reason it is why it's improved so significantly is because there's such a big microscope on products now. All it takes is Max Verstappen to be using a product and go, oh, that was rubbish, or I didn't enjoy that, and it's like suicide for a company. So they like, and Max is just an example. There's so many real life drivers out there, and that's the people that everyone wants to listen to, right? They're watching their streams or they're watching their videos, and so it has to be a competitive market in terms of price, as you said there, Danny. But improvement has to be there because, like you said, you get in an emotion rig and it's like a roller coaster. That's not what it's like in a car. It is if you crash, of course it is. But if you go around a corner, it's pretty smooth inputs, right? Instead of being thrown around like that, it just doesn't. It's just not how it is.
No, you mentioned it. You said it right, man. Because now you're having a lot of motorsport drivers into sim racing and getting these products, and now they're sponsored by these products, so like they're forced to make sure they have everything set up correctly. Because I mean, I don't even want to think about how many people uninstalled R Factor 2 from that, from when the Max Verstappen outburst during that race. Like, man, that was, so I'm pretty sure there was quite a few people that uninstalled it after that. So yeah, but these guys have a huge influence. Like, now looking like Tony Kanaan, Daniel Morad, real race car drivers actually giving their input into sim racing products, which is cool and great. And I guess that now, kind of leads me now into the next question. So, we've seen how motorsport drivers kind of have been shaping, the future of sim racing too. But what do you guys think? How do you think the sim racing community is playing a part in shaping the future of sim racing?
There's more people taking part. It's simple as that. So you've got a bigger sample size to improve products, because if a product isn't up to scratch compared to something else that a group of people have used, they'll tell you about it on Twitter. Sim racers are, some of the most vocal people out there. That you'll certainly know about it. But yeah, the more people involved in a hobby or more people involved in a space, things are always going to have to improve. Or like Danny mentioned again about the price points have to come down and quality has to go up. That's just a natural progression. And with the space getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and entry level gear now being good enough for the pros to be able to practice with,
totally.
Right.
That's the biggest key area, isn't it? So the sim racing community is absolutely shaping that. Well, you only need to go. I'm an old man. You only need to go to Facebook, right? And there's sim racing groups on there, and someone posts on there about that I had an issue with this product, and then just people jumping on the bandwagon. So companies are just being held to a higher quality and held in higher regard now if they get it right.
Yeah, wait, when did Facebook become for old people?
I don't even get that.
I'm an old, maybe because I am an old guy. I don't know.
When my 16-year-old turns around and goes, I don't have a Facebook account because I'm not old.
What?
That does it for me. Yeah, that's sobering.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, I get my little kid too. She's a teenager and she's like showing me these TikTok videos. I'm like, what the hell is TikTok? Hey,
we're over 30. It's illegal, right? We're not allowed to be on there, surely.
Yeah. We are getting banned from TikTok.
Yeah.
And you're told, go away.
Well, yeah, I think sim racing community has a huge part. I mean, we're a very niche community compared to other gaming communities, even with the growth that we've seen. And yeah, we're very vocal. Like, it's, you guys see it all the time. If company A has a problem with their device, everybody's brought out the pitchforks and the flamethrowers and calling for the heads of the companies to get things fixed right. And most of the times, the sim racing companies do get things done the right way. It's some things do happen, but I
have to disagree with you, by the way, about this whole niche. I don't think it is anymore. So you only have to look at me and Danny have seen obviously the expo grow, but. Just in general, you look at content creators, and you mentioned TikTok, little TikTok clips or Instagram reels. Look at the amount of likes, the views that are on that. Yeah. It's pretty much, it's not quite as big as the likes of Call of Duty or FIFA yet, but
they have a longer time.
But it's not far off. Like, we are seeing, lots of clips get to millions of views now, whereas I would say even 5-6 years ago, 10,000 views on any clip was massive for sim racing. So I think the audience, and you're not getting just a million viewers of people who have no idea what's going on. You're not just getting 50,000 people to like something who have no idea what's going on, right? They have to have some sort of inkling to like it. So that growth there says it all for me, to be honest. It was a niche. I don't think it is anymore. And you mentioned how many different companies are making wheelbases earlier, how many different companies are making wheel rims, pedals, like how big the market is. The only reason that market is getting bigger is because there's such a big demand for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would add something to it. I think the major issue we have in sim racing is actually the spread of titles.
Yeah.
And people start forgetting about actually the size. So I've done research as well for the company and so on. Mm-hmm. And if you see Assetto Corsa and ACC was sold 18 million times. Wow. On paper, it's more successful than Gran Turismo, the last one. Mm-hmm. So that is already what the fuck?
Yeah.
And then you see F1 esports or F1 games. Then you see all the casual games, I would say, like Forza, Test Drive. The start wasn't so good. But anyway, people playing it. And then you're cumulating this because there's always some kind of group in these kind of titles that are transitioning from a keyboard or a controller to a steering wheel.
Yeah.
But the question you need to ask is somebody a sim racer or like a racing game fan if he starts to use the steering wheel or when he starts to play the game?
Right.
And I think from my experience when I used to, as a kid, driving Gran Turismo 2 in the Mitsubishi GT, which four-wheel drive and too many horsepowers, I was already like a fan of driving racing cars visually. And that's just took me around the years and money I had to spend to something like my big simulator.
Right.
So, as Luke said, there's a lot of interest in virtual racing.
Yeah.
And maybe it's not on the super niche scale like high end, but people, when they see virtual cars and see racing, can already deal with it and say, oh yeah, that's like motorsports, right?
Yeah.
And there are a lot of factors that are playing into that. The culture's more open. Also, Drive to Survive.
Yeah.
Educated younger people to motorsports, and then racing drivers tending to use sim racing, and then this kind of things kicking off. And also, as we talked about our age, and you have children, there are already like the second gen of sim racing children, like where the parents started to use sim racing as a 13-year-old, and now they have kids, and the kids are also looking like, what is that? Can I do some laps? And then you have successfully grown your child into a sim racer and can get ready to spend a lot of money.
I know, man. I think it's like
it's quite remarkable that sim racing is as big as it is right now, because I like to look at trends within, let's say, FIFA and Call of Duty. Those are the two games I play outside of sim racing. And in Call of Duty, with the way skill-based matchmaking works, you can watch the best player in the world. Let's say Scump is doing one of his streams, and he'll hit a 4-piece. Now, you can go and play against the players of your ability and hit that 4-piece. Not all the time, but every now and again. In FIFA, you can watch the pros, and then you can score an overhead kick. They're doing it all the time, but you can replicate it.
Right.
The thing with sim racing is you cannot replicate your heroes. Like, so the fastest driver in the world, you can't replicate it. You don't have that one-off where you're against, of course you can win races, but you can't be as fast as them. You can't replicate what you're seeing on the screen, unfortunately. So that's the only thing that holds it back. So the fact that that is the case, how big it is now, and obviously we've all been around sim racing for such a long time that we knew that this could potentially happen, but to now see it is a little bit of a shock, I would say. But because we live in it, we're kind of it's not. I think if we were outside the bubble and we took a look at sim racing 10 years ago and never just didn't visit it at all again, and then we looked at it now, we would just be like, wow. I think because we're in it, we don't see how big it really is.
Yeah, that's probably you guys are right on that. Like, I don't mean to say like niche or small. I was saying like niche compared to like the Call of Duty, the other stuff. It's cool. Like, one of my favorite things now in sim racing, you couldn't do this 10 years ago, is like, you go into iRacing, you jump into a lobby, and like all of a sudden there's Rubens Barrichello, or there's Daniel Morad, or Connor Daly, and it's like, is that really them? And then you afterwards, like, I remember the first time I saw Barrichello in there, like, I go into the race, I check the profile, I'm like, holy crap, that's Rubens Barrichello. Like, I was just racing against Rubens Barrichello, and I'd go to my friends like, hey guys, like, I was racing against Rubens Barrichello. So like, so I think it's probably, to me, that's probably the one thing you see in sim racing that you probably don't see in the other titles that gets people in. And your point, Dan, like, you're talking about the second gen, like, one of my favorite things is to go on Reddit and see guys building the kids' rigs for their kids.
Yes, that's
racing,
really cool,
right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome to see, actually.
Yeah, man.
And also, now there are actually sim racing brands building simulators for children, which is also like, what the fuck? Awesome.
It's like the karting, isn't it? It's becoming the alternative to karting. I'm not saying it can replace karting. That's always going to be there, but you are seeing opportunities in terms of esports prizing geared towards opportunities in a race car. We saw Moritz Lohner, for instance, get that opportunity with DTM.
Can I say I done 20 years of motorsports and never earned anything, like money-wise, and done 10 years of sim racing and got 30,000 euros? I mean, I think motorsports is shit in terms of earning money.
Yeah. Oh,
So-
I don't think you even earn unless like
No.
you're like a Lewis Hamilton, Verstappen. Like,
It's very
I know
American money. Like it's almost in the series in America. You almost, if you win it, they pay for your next season. Like that's how it works in America. But over in Europe, it's very rare to get prize money.
Europe is like pay the triple
Right?
amount.
Everyone used to give Jamie Chadwick so much stick for running the W Series every year.
Yeah.
When you get $500,000, it's like you just can't get $500,000 in any other series. So
Yeah.
yes, you race that every year you can, man. Like,
Yeah.
wow.
Even DTM drivers were like, fuck.
yeah, I mean, because I can't remember his name, but there was just an F2 driver that lost his seat, even though he was doing really, really well in F2, and he lost it because he ran out of money. Like, it's crazy to see like a talented driver, like all of a sudden, like, sorry guys, I ran out of money, I can't race anymore. Like,
Talent doesn't mean anything anymore because the major issue in motorsports is there are a lot of people now entering motorsports. And even though you have talent, there are a lot of people with talent and money.
yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. But it's cool to see now, like, at least, you know, karting, like, even like starting off karting, like, I remember, who was it? Jensen Button was talking about how, you know, on average they spend almost $100,000 a year just in karting alone.
Yeah.
And now that you have the path in sim racing, you're starting to see it's a cheap option. Danny, you mentioned it. You can make money off of the prizes, but now you're seeing like, you know, these competitions that actually get you drives in real cars. I mean, you've had Jan Martinborough. He got into motorsport that way by sim racing, and now you're seeing Suella Almedia. He's transitioned from sim racing. Now he's racing, I believe, radicals in the States. So yeah, now I think we're gonna start seeing a lot more of that, of these sim racers now making that transition into motorsport.
Can I add something to it?
Yeah.
Because it's my past that I coached drivers.
Yeah.
And for my sim race team, I also coach drivers.
Yeah.
And I have like 13 to 16-year-olds people in the sim racing team. And compared to the drivers I used to coach in real life racing, the most interesting part is if you go to a 15-year-old real racing driver and tell him what you need to adjust in the setup of the car, or can you analyze your own telemetry, they are always like need a third person to do that.
Yeah.
In sim racing, it's actually so crazy that the young people start to feel like they have the competitive plateau reached because they're missing wisdom and knowledge.
Yeah.
And they start to, through YouTube, online research, start to get their grips on telemetry through Garage 61 or VRS.
Yeah.
And then trying to click on setups, because also through the setup shops, you can have like 5 different setups with totally different philosophies, and then they're driving and adjusting. And they're coming out as 15-year-old, where I'm like, shall we do like some telemetry? And he's like, no, I did it already in the school. And I was like, okay, that's cool. and that's like the biggest advantage of virtual racing, actually, that everything is actually more or less for free in these kind of regards. And people that have the desire can educate themselves and getting very quick, very good drivers, because the only limitation they have is time.
Yeah.
And that's it. If you want to train like 10 hours on your braking technique, you can do that. And in real life, it's not possible. Simply down to not many cars have telemetry on site, on board, and you don't have the time to spend 10 days as a karting track, except for the karting track, you own the karting track. And I think there's, in the future, people that translating from sim racing into real racing will show how much knowledge and how much more mature the drivers are in the same age compared to traditional drivers. It will not happen in the next 2 years or the next 5 years, but with more teams taking on sim racers and showing that sim racers are actually capable of doing these kind of things, that will naturally drip down into also the education and mentality of racing teams.
Yeah.
But the major issue currently is that racing teams are owned by very old people. They don't even understand social media. Yeah. And then there's somebody coming, I trained 6,000 laps on Bathurst for this race.
Like,
what?
how? Yeah.
Yeah, but it's a simulator. It doesn't matter. No. He trained 6,000 laps. He can tell like every bump by his name, and like can tell you at 14 o'clock the light makes this shadow. At 18 o'clock this shadow, and that's like the major advantage we can get out of sim racing into motorsports. And yeah.
Yeah, so I get, you kind of already answered my next question, because and if you guys have any different things to bring up too. So like, you know, seeing where sim racing is now, and now going, let's say like 5 years from now, how do you see esport and sim racing integrating into mainstream motorsport? I mean, I don't know. We kind of answered a little bit, but if you guys have a different take on things.
That's totally different topic, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm very curious to hear Luke's opinion on that, because we talked last time, I think it's 6 months ago when we talked about that.
Did that result in an argument or no?
No.
Okay, all right.
I think they need to be separate.
Okay.
I don't think that they should be I don't think they should like the Fanatec GT Challenge, where they have the sim racing points. I disagree with that completely, and I actually don't think it's shed any extra light on sim racing. I don't think it's increased the visibility of sim racing either. I don't think it's really helped, and I don't think it's had a negative effect either. I just think it's a bit naff, if I'm completely honest.
Okay.
That's how I see it. I'll use an example. So I work for Redline. I run their stream content, and we had an event this year where Max was racing in Formula 1 in Imola, and on the same weekend he raced in Nürburgring 24 hours. Completely separate events, but the interest was just massive for both of them, and it was actually quite funny. The media day was all about the sim race.
Yep.
So all the questions were about the sim race, and like the interest was massive. And you know, I think if they were to exist together, Max wouldn't have done both. Like, you do one or the other, right? Because they're getting too close, and what's the point of doing two different disciplines? So for me, I think they need to be separated. I like what Rensport have done with their esports event, because it's just short, sharp. Like, it's very 2024 TikTok brain racing, if that makes sense, in terms of the viewers and the audience. And that's something you're never, ever going to see in real world motorsport, right? You're never going to get, you got 1 lap to qualify, and then you're going to go straight into a 10, 15-minute race or an 8-lap race. That's just not how real world motorsport works. So the pain for sim racing is that the real world does exist. So if you copy with sim racing what the real world's doing, you cannot garner the attention that real world gets, because the real world equivalent is always going to win out because of the danger and the excitement and the smell and the sounds. Like that can never be replicated, right? Unless you get someone with a lawnmower next to you blowing the fumes into your face and chucking a couple of leaves on you, and you know what I mean. So for me personally,
the engine in your stomach is like totally crazy at the racing track.
I'm sure somebody will come out with like 4D. You know?
Yeah, of course. Right. It'd be like IMAX Racing or something. I think it's a great tool to use, and like Danny said, you know, you could go do 3 hours at Bathurst, and then you could decide to go to Kota for 3 hours, at the click of a button in a completely different car. So it's just not, you can't replicate that in the real world of racing. So I've just mentioned all of the positives of real world racing, and then instantly sim racing's got you can just do whatever you want. You can do 12 hours of a race whenever you want, and that is great to prepare yourself for the real world of racing. So I think they have to be separate. That's just how I see it.
Yeah, I would go on the same page with Luke. The only thing I would add is actually the kind of stuff what Rensport has done with their tournament style was basically okay. But the point where they failed was they used GT3 cars. And as Luke said, we have all this variety. You have 100 tracks in iRacing. You have 80 plus cars on road. And don't try to replicate all the boring stuff which we have in real life.
Make your own car. Everyone has the same car. No,
Luke, no, we can't start this topic. I last time Expo when we had the drink, I will tell this afterwards. But why we don't use sim racing as a tool to show rallycross cars on Nürburgring Nordschleife or Ford Legends on Oschersleben Short, and this kind of stuff is never happening in real life, but is awesome to watch in sim racing because it's something that people maybe endorsed for all in life. Like, I would love to see Bayer trucks on, I don't know, Hockenheim bowling track, but on some kind Oran Park or something like that. And we can do that. It doesn't cost any money, and you can put up a show. VCO made this kind of Infinity stuff where you can have 24 hours, 24 races, and it was fucking awesome. Sorry for the...
We can bleep it out later in the edit.
Yeah,
I stayed awake the whole 24 hours, Danny. I loved it, and I was just watching it. So
yeah, totally. And what we could do, so basically what Rennsport was missing on the esport part is make a fixed physics and give every team a 3D designer and let them design their own car.
Yeah.
For each team, like totally different, all have the same power, same engine, blah, 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 but different car design, and each time a different livery, and people can buy it for 99 cents. They can buy the car for €2, and the team gets 50% of that. And then you have like an ecosystem that is already paying the people that participating in this platform. And this whole attachment to OEMs is not helping, because OEMs will take sim racing, and I don't want to blame them, because for them it's logical, and these kind of big companies are turning so slow that they think, oh, that's racing. We have a GT3 car. We need to sell them. Let's put a GT3 car in there.
Yeah.
And that's not the fault of the people that are working there. That's not the fault of people doing Rennsport. That is just the system, how it goes. And I
don't think many people have bought a car based off of how it felt in a racing game. I don't believe that that's happened. Like it may have happened a couple of times, but I do not believe that someone's gone onto iRacing and gone, oh, do you know what? I'm going to buy that car because of the race I had with it.
No, but I would argue. So I was racing the AMG, and I'm not a huge AMG fan. Like, I don't like the F1 team. Well, I can't. Sorry, I'm not disliking them, but I'm not a fan of them. Yeah. Basically, my heart is not with them. But when they win, I would say, like, oh, they won. But when I used to drive the AMG on the Nordschleife and made all the efforts and progress, and also winning some very big championships there, it directly tied the emotion of the championship to that car. And I have like 2 pictures of the car here. And it's still not the favorite car I would race on iRacing, but I return always to that because of the emotional attachment. And it has still like a small place in my heart for what it is. Yeah. And therefore, I'm like, when I see it on the Nordschleife in real life, I'm also attached to it. Like, I hope I'll win, because then I have like the emotional feeling of, I know what the people are going through. But nobody will buy a car because it's a BMW or an AMG. They need to have like, they need to be pre-primed with an emotional attachment to the car.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of agree there. Is like, I mean, I can't say anything as a content creator because I have to buy all the content, test them out, and try them and everything. For me, I tend to buy cars, or I tend to drive the cars that I enjoy seeing in real life. Like, for me, my favorite car of all time is the 2016 BMW DTM M4 car. Like, and you can only get it in race room, but man, every time I jump in it and I drive it, I'm like, oh my gosh, this car is so much fun. Like, why can we not have this car in the other sims? And like, this is crazy. And they, when they came out, DTM came out and said we're switching to GT3 cars, dude, my heart sank. Oh my god, like, not another GT3 series. But I get why they had to do it. But yeah, I get that. It's that emotional feeling you get with the car. Some people buy cars like, oh, it's the fastest car, so I got to drive it. Some people are like that, but I think most get these cars with that emotional attachment to it for sure. So you guys are, and I'm kind of with you guys too. I'm against integrating esport into mainstream motorsport. Like, they definitely should be kept separate. Because I didn't like it when, for example, the Fanatec World GT Series did that for a season or two. I'm like, why are the real drivers having to race for points in a sim? But I don't. But do you guys see any kind of having a relationship between real world motorsports and sim racing that's going to evolve over time?
Luke, do you want to go?
Well, we're already seeing it, right? So I can just go from my experience. I know Rudy Van Buren and Sebastian Joe pretty well, and they are both sim drivers for Oracle Red Bull, the actual Formula One team. So there's direct parallels. These teams, the big teams, are now utilising sim racers to get the most out of it. And it goes back to what Danny was saying earlier about the youngsters. When they feel like they've run out of getting better in terms of their own talent, they look for little things they can maybe figure out in and around the game physics, or something they can use with the car setup, with the surroundings in terms of the game. Whereas in real world motorsport, that would be the setup of the car, and is there, the certain cambers in corners. Oh, can we utilize that to our advantage? Can we look outside of the box and figure something out a little bit extra than what's beyond my capabilities currently? So that's what I would say is the best thing coming from sim racing, is that it's being looked at from a different perspective.
No, I completely agree, man. You agree, Danny, or you got a different
Yeah, I
take?
totally
Okay.
agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for me, the deal was sealed when Atze Kerkhoff was driving back then. I saw the clip last week with Max in Spa. I think it was 2019 or something. No, it needs to be earlier. Where they're both training on Spa, on iRacing, and Max trained the overtake on the outside on Blanchimont into it. And from that time, and when he have done that in the real race, I mean, I was sold on that sim racing has a purpose to train people in real life, and also can give this kind of perspective that what you've learned there is actually transferable. And on one side, I had a friend who had a car accident 2 months ago, and he was like, if he wouldn't drive sim racing so often, because he never had any risk experience with the safety training or racing track, he was like, yeah, if I had not the experience of catching cars in sim racing, he would have a way worse accident, because he could like catch the slide on the oil and just bumped with the rear into the barrier.
Yeah.
And I think these kind of things are also like nice side effects nobody's talking about.
Yeah.
But it helps a lot to just generally have the car. And also from my side, I will drive probably next sometimes some karting races again. And in the past, I was always like thinking about, are you still good enough? Because you don't have the time. But I know now, when I can compete with people on sim racing on a higher scale, there's way more people than in karting in Germany.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I can go back and just jump into the car and know I still have the pace, or like still at least the techniques to be fast. So that's also something which is sim racing actually satisfying.
Okay. Well, cool, man. Yeah. I mean, getting back into the expo now.
Yeah.
We're down to the last two questions about the Sim Expo. So, do you guys have? What are your guys' key goals and objectives for the future future of the Sim Racing Expo? For this year and probably going into the future.
I could go on that one.
Yeah.
So I see the Sim Racing Expo being, because we're now in the same venue, it's more familiar, as I mentioned earlier on. It's something like you're seeing on social media. I've met a lot of friends from it. I've engaged with other content creators around it, and you're seeing their tweets and their posts. Oh, who's coming to the expo? Who's going to come meet me? Like yesterday on Twitter, or X, whatever you want to call it. I call it Twitter because I'm old. There's a Formula 124 group that are like, oh, who's coming? And there's a thread of them all go, yeah, I'm going to go, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, which is really, really cool. And why can't the Sim Expo be similar to paintballing, or a hobby that a stag do would go on, or even a hen do? Why not? Why can it not be a hen do? Or a lad's holiday, or a girl's holiday, where it's like, oh, this is one weekend where we all go to Dortmund, and it's our hobby's sim racing. That's why we're friends. Why not go and check out all the new equipment, but then go out in Dortmund, have some beers, have a couple of steins, have a schnitzel, all the usual German delicacies, maybe catch a Bundesliga game at the same time. That's how I want the expo to grow. Is by people gaining connections, because word of mouth is the biggest tool in advertisement. It's fantastic. You can put adverts out there on social media. You see it all the time on Twitch or Twitter. But unless you hear it from someone going, "I had a really good time," can you really believe an advertisement? So that's what it needs to be. It needs to be a place where people meet friends, or they can meet, take existing friends as a group and meet up. And like last year with Gridfinder actually had like this sort of treasure hunt going on, and people were making friends via like the treasure hunts and stuff like that, which is really, really cool. So yeah, that's how I see it growing. Is just people knitting together, and it's a common goal, right? You're not going to the Sim Expo because you enjoy the basketball. You're going there because you like sim racing. Everybody's there for that reason. They like sim racing, unless they're being dragged by their significant other around. You can see them as well. Their faces are like, oh god, this is cool. It's a bit like me when I get dragged out shopping. But yeah, it's just everyone's common goal is to go there, test out some new equipment, have fun. But it's more than that. Like there is a real cool city to go out and look. It's actually right next to a hockey arena as well. That kept me awake one night last time we were there. And I implore people to go and watch a hockey game if there's one on during the weekend. There is so much to do.
Yeah, dude, you're right, and you brought up like the whole connection, meeting people. And while I was there talking, I've met some of the content creators I've talked to, over Insta, and we got to actually meet each other for the first time. But one of the stuffs that really made me so happy was these group of guys from England. They've been racing each other for 7-10 years, never met each other in real life before, and they just decided one day, it's like, hey, let's all go to the Sim Racing Expo. And so a couple of them, they started doing their road trip, picking up people along the way and making their way down to the Sim Expo. And it's like, dude, seeing how excited they were to see each other for the first time. Guys they've been racing for years, never actually got to meet. And them there together, having fun, afterwards going to the party, drinking beers and eating food. Dude, it was so amazing to see how much sim racing can make connections over distance, but then actually seeing those people come together for the first time and meeting each other and how interacting, that was, to me, was like the cherry on cake of the ADAC Sim Expo. I didn't care too, I care about the vendors from the sim racing content creator portion, but as a human, actually being able to meet people and interact and have fun and chat and see, share our hobbies together, that was, to me, that's the most beautiful part of the Sim Expo.
I would love for people who have had that experience and have those stories, because I've been in this job for only a month, so it's very new, and obviously it's quite close to the expo, so it's kind of limited on what we can do. But I would love for these groups to reach out and go, let's write this story, let's have a post about this and explain how much fun you had, and tell people what experiences you had. I think that would be an amazing thing to do. Maybe once a month we could. This is our meeting now, Dan. It's our Monday meeting already. But once a month we could showcase a story of the community. These are really good ideas, These are, and those people are the reason why the expo's growing to the size it is, right?
Yeah, to be honest, these kind of people that making this kind of effort to come to the expo are actually like the soul of the expo. Yeah. Because when first time I went to expo was never because of sim racing, or for testing hardware. I had my sim racing team. We were growing up, and we know us from early 20s, and we're like, oh, now finally I have a car, now finally I can afford to come to the expo. And then back in Nürburgring, we had a house together and party on until midnight and even later. And next time gone onto the expo, next day meet Gregor Hutto. You just saw him on the YouTube stream in F1 Esports, and it's Gregor Hutto in front of you, and you're like, hey, how's it going? And then you're sitting in a bar and drinking with him, and or with Enzo, when Enzo was still a child, he's still very young. And these kind of things are unmeasurable, to be honest. And I'm a bit sad that because we are working so much on the expo, we don't get so much into these kind of things, getting the feedback of that, or the stories, as Luke proposed. I think that would be an amazing thing to just share the stories of people that have such a great time. And coming back to the goal of the expo, it's really hard to define. On one hand, you can say, you want to have more exhibitors. Mm-hmm. That's a measurable thing. Yeah. Also having more visitors. Mm-hmm. That's a measurable economical shit.
Right.
And but for me, it's like I have some certain people that I very value in the industry and in sim racing itself, and they are always very honest. And if they are saying they had a good time and they enjoyed it and it was a good show, I know like this is for me the first trend. Like, okay, that was a good show. We put something great up into that. And personally, after last year, because it was such an effort and such a hill to climb, I had some kind of after-event depression. And that was for me the first thing where I noticed probably all the work we put into it was worth it, because, we are from Monday there, and then Sunday, and probably early Monday, so for 1 week. And then you worked like 9 months on the project, and then it's gone. It's like gone.
Yeah.
And you couldn't take everything with you. And but as harder this depression feeling after the expo is, it's always a good indicator it was really good.
Yeah.
So for me, obviously, economic side is important for the company, but personally, what you both said and this kind of after event depression, even it sounds so bad, but it's really like,
no, I get it, man. Yeah, you worked so hard on something, and then it's like all of a sudden you spent months and months and months, and now all of a sudden it's gone. You're like, what do I do now? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the good thing is, at least through content creators and all the people, you can relive all the things. Otherwise, I would be like, I couldn't do the job, because then you're like, you work your asses off and so many nights and so on, and then it's like, I don't have anything afterwards, just stress and deficit of vitamins and everything. But it's like really like also having the opportunity to work for all these people and helping also the industry with the platform and having people to reach other people is like if you don't think about it, you often lost this kind of thought. But when we now putting these kind of thoughts like actively back in the head, it's like a very humbling feeling, to be honest.
That could be some of the hardest days in this job. As someone who's done content creation, or working now with Redline, I guess it's still creating content, and with the Expo, it's such a niche job, and not many people in my life understand what I do. Like my partner, we've been together nearly 15 years, and she wouldn't be able to tell you what I do, really, to be completely honest, because it's such a niche. And when you have such a successful time, or you do something really good, the blues from it, because you can't talk to someone about it, is
Right.
You want to celebrate with everybody, but you mention it to your mate, and they're like, yeah, all right, cool, Yeah. But the only thing that, like, in my job is I get tagged from a clip that happens on a stream, and it's like, then you get a few people commenting below, that was hilarious, and that's kind of your gratification or your validation, or you're able to, like, celebrate that was a really good time, because it's very difficult to find anyone in your real life that actually really understands what you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really like the worst thing, actually.
Yeah, I agree, man. So last thing, part of the official podcast. Do you have any announcements or things that you can share with us? For this expo that's going to be happening that you guys probably haven't announced yet or are going to. Is there anything you can share with us on the podcast?
Yeah, to be honest, there's a lot of things that we can share. But the issue is whether we are allowed to share it. Let's say I can go with the things which are on the schedule of social media this or next week. We are very lucky, to be honest, that we are now in the position with the Expo that companies are actually planning their product releases, like world premieres, on the date of the Expo, which is really good. So you will see world premieres live on stage, like a keynote, which is really cool. Also shows all the way we have gone through all the kind of phases and up and downs. It's from the boost size, it will be crazy, because Fanatec, Logitech, Asetec will try to mess each other up, like who has the biggest boost. That's crazy, because the size itself is unbelievable on the square meters, but I don't want to spoil that.
Yeah.
And
I'm keeping quiet. I'm terrible at this, and I know so much.
Yeah.
I'm just
so
hey,
many people
buy
inquire.
me some biscuits, and I'll probably tell you. But that's about it.
Good that we're not drinking on the podcast before.
Dang it! I need to get you drinks next time. All right.
Let's
Deal.
let's say, look, Expo is a European thing and like German thing, and the UK is an interesting part of the world. Sadly, it's now like decoupled from Europe.
Right.
There are a lot of interesting areas in the world, and Simracing Expo, with the network we have and the trust with our exhibitors, let's say there's some potential or ideas to take it to another part of the world.
Okay. That be in conjunction with the one in Germany, or like moving it, or just like having
No,
one?
we will. So like we will ever have the German European Simracing Expo, because that's our like target group, Europe.
Yeah.
And but there's still interest, like huge interest in Simracing Expo and other parts of the world, where it's now became the point that people ask us to come somewhere.
Okay.
Which is very good, to be honest. Because when you go over another country or even other part of the world, building up connections for exhibitions and getting a feeling of how much everything costs, is it okay, and so on, is very, very hard. I mean, we're working for so long time in Germany on that part, and also as an exhibition builder before.
Right.
So you know the stuff, right? You know whether the square meter price is okay or not, or it's too much. So basically, that's a huge undertaking we have currently. And well, you find out at the expo.
All right. Dang it. I was hoping I could.
Yeah.
I'm gonna mail. Next time we do this, I'm gonna send you guys some drinks beforehand.
Yeah, no worries.
I think you said enough, Danny. To be honest, I'm like,
I
okay.
can't. Otherwise, Micha will watch it, and then I'm in the office again and get slapped directly at the first entering the door. Then you never go on a podcast again.
Well, yeah. So, all right, guys. I mean, I'm gonna end the official part, and now we're gonna get into. We got 5 questions. I'm gonna ask you guys. They're gonna be quick fire questions, so you don't have to take too much time with it. And I'll ask you guys individually. And I'm gonna start with Danny first. All right. What's your favorite sim racing title?
Gran Turismo.
All right. Favorite car and track?
Porsche Cayman GT4.
Okay. And track?
Track? Oh,
yeah.
Fuck. Road Atlanta. There's so many good tracks.
I know.
What should I say?
First one that comes to your mind. I don't know.
Yeah, 15. I have some hanging there, but
I don't. I've got my 3 favorite hanging in back on my wall.
Yeah.
All right. If you could race against any professional driver, real or esport driver, who would it be?
To be honest, I think against René Rast, because I met him already in person, and he's a really cool dude, and you can have a lot of fun with him. He's like very professional on one side, but on the other side, very cool.
Nice. Okay. And then lastly, what is your most memorable moment in sim racing?
Definitely the fight I had against Phil Dennis in the Nordschleifen equivalent of the virtual part. When he was driving for Marle in Porsche and I in Mercedes AMG. I think I never raced against someone who was so equally and some special stuff so much better that you really had to feel each lap in each corner. You need to improve on yourself until the next corner to actually win the fight and at any cost. And I like it when people also can drive a bit, not bump and run, but like driving a bit more with their elbows out. And I think it was a very good fight too, also for the viewers. And I still remember it, and sometimes I'm watching the clip of YouTube of that because I never had any so much respect for some driver, and now he's driving GT3s in real life, and it's very rare sometimes if you're like really competitive towards other drivers that you really wish them to succeed and growing over what they already are.
Yeah.
And I'm totally happy for him racing GT3 cars because he deserves that so much. And that was for me like really the most memorable racing fight I had. Yeah.
Nice. Awesome, man. Luke, it is now your turn. All right. Gonna do it. What is your favorite sim racing title?
Project Cars.
All right. Favorite car and track?
So I got two, so I'm going to be greedy here.
Okay.
The GT5 Ginetta in Project Cars, the original, and around Alton Park Fosters.
Okay.
And in Project Cars 2, the Renault Clio at Sportsland Sugo.
Nice. That's a nice combo. All right. If you can race against any professional driver, real or virtual, who would it be?
So it would have been Max Verstappen, but I race against him quite often now, to the extent where we're not ever very close by the end of the race, but he started in front of me just last week in FF Ray 1600s, I think it is, on iRacing, and he literally DM'd me on the iRacing screen saying, I'm starting in reverse, and I was just like, yeah, okay, copy, and he came towards me as I take off. So he did, and he still won the race. Unreal. So it's always fun with him, but for me, I would like to do an Indy 500 on iRacing with Joseph Newgarden.
Nice.
Oh, really
well, that's
good
a good one.
Yeah.
And I've also raced against Rene Rast, Danny. I'm sorry about that.
All right. So what is your most memorable moment in sim racing?
It's from this year when I hosted the Team Redline Nürburgring 24-hour race where Max raced a real race in Imola Formula 1 and the Nürburgring and won both. We had, at the highest point, 27,000 viewers. I think we would have hit 50 to maybe 70k, but it actually blew my PC up. Mid-stint, his first stint in the night time, my PC was smoking. It was not good. I've got a new one now, thankfully. But it's my proudest moment because the Redline community's just grown so significantly. And even when there was 27,000 viewers, and I mean, a lot of them are obviously casual, they've come in because of that one reason. The community that we've built shone through the chat. And it was just... yeah, it's just a culmination of a lot of hard work, a lot of planning. Again, shout out to everybody at Team Redline for that event. But yeah, it was my face on the screen, so I'm very, very proud of that stream specifically. So yeah, that's my highlight.
All right, that's awesome, man. Well, I mean, we're at the end now. I want to thank you guys for joining us here at the podcast for at the Simpit. I know you guys are super busy guys. And so I won't hold you guys up too much. I won't hold you guys up any much longer. But do you guys have any final closing comments before we end the podcast?
Luke gets the final word. And
no, go on, Danny. You're the main man.
No. Okay. Look, then do you say something and then I say something.
Okay.
The Sim Expo is ever growing. It's becoming very family orientated, not only in the organisation, but in the people that take part and turn up each and every year. So if you've never tried it, you should genuinely come and get involved. And also make sure you subscribe to the Simpit.
Yeah, I'm not so professional in this kind of things.
This is casual, man. Don't worry. It's all good.
I would just want to express my being grateful for being here, because I mean I'm doing sim racing like now nearly 20 years, and being on the Simpit podcast is like totally crazy. When I used to watch it like years ago when it was like a small channel, and all the time back when I was like very getting into iRacing on the old 2011 UI and watching the Simpit on tutorials and so on. Now sitting here, it's like it's making the circle like. And thank you very much for having us. And we're always very grateful to like be on a podcast and or generally speaking about the Simracing Expo, about us. People tend to forget that it's maybe for the most part people watch it and when it will be released, but it's always present on the internet. It's always a great memory. And thank you for the great questions. And I hope you subscribe to the Simpit, because on YouTube, most of the people watching videos are not subscribers. And if you enjoyed this nearly 1 hour. You should also subscribe, just helping out the channel, and thumbs up. You don't know if you would care for the YouTube algorithm, the thumbs up helps so much, and doesn't cost you anything. Just help out the guys with thumbs up, and thanks for watching and listening.
Oh, thank you guys. I don't have to do the spiel anymore. You did it for me, Danny. I appreciate it. So on that note, guys, Luke, Danny, thank you very much. And for everybody out there, from me, Luke, and Danny, get out there, sim race, and have some fun. We'll catch you guys later.